Hi everyone, welcome 2014 football season. You know, it's really good that we're starting another one of these. I'm Catherine Casey. If this is your first time watching, I help out with Coach Pinkel's website, garypinkel.com, and social media and videos. We're excited that Coach Pinkel is here as always to help host this and hang out with you guys. And then we also today are very honored to have Coach Dr. Coach Pat Ivey. So, I don't know if you guys want to open up, say a little bit.
Well, first of all, I appreciate everybody out there, being a part of this. The reason we started doing this is we just really want to have open communication with all our fans out there. So give them an opportunity to ask some other questions and maybe might not be asked at press conferences, but just be transparent and connect with you. And so I appreciate all the Mizzou fans out there and your love for Mizzou. And I appreciate Catherine, the great job she does, and also Pat Ivey. He's one of the best there is in the business, and we're going to be able to talk about some things, technology, things that have happened in his field that have tremendously changed over the last few years.
No, this is pretty cool. I'm excited to get started. Let's go.
Anyone want to jump in? Go ahead.
But let me start with first. Just ask Pat this. Pat, we kind of just give an overview, and then we might go back in detail of some things, but overview of kind of what's happened, in the player development side of sport, and certainly in football.
Well, if you go back to 2007, we had what we call the strength and conditioning department, and that's where you have strength coaches where there's traditional weightlifting and basic conditioning and agilities and explosive type of running and acceleration. And so in 2007, we created what we called the Athletic Performance Department, and I became the Director of Athletic Performance. Josh Stoner became the Director of Strength and Conditioning, and Janet Heitmeyer, who was a strength coach, became the Director of Sports Nutrition, because we realized that nutrition was a big component of what we did, and just working on weights and running was no longer going to be acceptable for us to be the best that we could be. And so we knew that sports nutrition was going to be a big component of what we did, and so we started a department, and now we've grown even more. We have massage therapy, so we have a staff of massage therapists that work here at Mizzou. We have 15 massage therapists that work at Mizzou and 5 massage therapists that work with the football team. We have what we call corrective biomechanics and preventative medicine specialists. We have physical therapists from MOI that come over and work with our guys. They do a lot of soft tissue techniques, and they're looking at stabilization and mobilization, making sure that all of our guys are basically fine-tuned and making sure that we can train them to the best of our possibilities. We have sports psychology now. We have a whole sports psychology department. Last year, this is started by Dr. Rick McGuire, and 4 years ago there were, I think, 3 people on staff. Last year I was in a meeting. We have weekly meetings for sports psychology that I'm a part of. Last year, our first meeting, we had 25 people in the room that work with all sports here at Mizzou, and so it's a team. And now what we just created a few weeks ago, what we call applied performance, a whole new department. So Josh Stoner now oversees strength and conditioning. So you have athletic performance, then you have applied performance. That's the problem solving, and so that's where you have all of the technology, and I'll talk about that. But he oversees strength and conditioning, and I oversee what we call corrective biomechanics, athletic performance, and sports nutrition, and with the incorporation of sports psychology. And so we're looking at every angle we can to develop our athletes. We're looking at if there's anything out there that we can do to help our athletes, that's what we're doing.
And that's really remarkable. I mean, if you look back to 6 to 8 years ago, what has happened in this area, it's overwhelming. And the great thing about what we've done here at Mizzou, and I think why we're one of the tops in the country at doing this, is through Pat and the people that he works with. We stay on the cutting edge. We're always out there to find out what's the best thing to help our student athletes, not only from a performance standpoint, but from a health standpoint. and it's just it's absolutely remarkable. But it's also really exciting because it's all a training a student athlete, and all those components that Pat just talked about. We go in great detail and train and educate our athletes about, and it's been remarkably positive for us.
Yeah, so it's not just lifting weights, huh?
No, not quite.
No. If Vince Lombardi knew all this stuff was going on, I don't know what he could be doing right now.
So you guys can ask a question about that if anybody wants to jump in
or any question.
Anything.
Sure. This is Joe Smitter with Inside Columbia Magazine. Pat, back in your playing days, how have things changed, equipment-wise and facility-wise, since the time you were here at Mizzou?
Wow, when I first got
when
here,
did you play
all right,
here?
so we have to go back to the early 90s when I played football here from 1991 to 1995. The weight room, which is where the dining hall is located now, was 3,000 square feet, and right now we have a 15,000 square foot facility, and that's just one of 3 facilities that we have. So things have changed a lot. The technology that goes into and the science that goes into the workout programming has changed, but the one thing that has not changed is hard work. You have to work hard. You have to. A 45-pound plate still weighs 45 pounds, and now the technology and the science we use and how we call periodize, how we plan out the workout has changed tremendously. How we monitor the effects of the workout has changed. How we move the weights has changed. So we used to move weights really slow, and so there are times when you do move weights slow, but we want to progress to where we're moving the weights fast. So we look at force. So force equals mass times acceleration. We're able to measure force now, and that makes a big difference, because if you look at what happens on the football field, it's all about force production and who can produce the most amount of force, who can strike the fastest and the quickest. And so that's something that we always take into consideration now versus back when I was training. It was just about how much weight can you move.
Hey, this is Chris Lowe of ESPN.com. I cover college football. In spirit of full disclosure, one of the many media members that slept on the Tigers last year when we did our preseason prediction. Shame on me, right? I appreciate you guys having me. Gary, I wonder, you talk about nutrition, you talk about strength training. What about in the area of sleep? How closely do you guys monitor, sleep habits by your players, how much sleep they get, et cetera?
Well, honestly, that's we always Pat always talk. We all talk about our players taking care of themselves. Being kind to yourself, and that's nutrition. That's sleeping. That's certainly making sure that you get the proper rest, that you use your time the right way, time management, and so on and so forth. And that's something that we work. I don't know that we monitor as much as educate our players on. Hopefully, knowing that they have the importance of sleep. And from a health standpoint, maybe Pat, you want to elaborate on that?
All right. So something that we use as tools to help our guys, we have what we call faster. And so it's faster is fruits and vegetables. Always fill it with fruits and vegetables. Always hydrate. Start with breakfast. Eat lean protein. Start with breakfast. Think lean protein, and eat often and rest and recover. So on the back of every workout, we ask the players when they come in to say how much sleep they're getting every night. So we actually record how much sleep each guy is getting all of the time. We also have technology that helps us as well. We have what we call the Omega Wave, and it looks at 7 different biological systems, which takes into consideration how you're sleeping. And so that's something that we use for guys. And it works, it's accurate, and it's something that you do as soon as you wake up. And what it does is it gives us information back. So as soon as they're within vicinity of the facilities, we can have that information and be able to dictate if they're red, yellow, or green in terms of their recovery.
One thing that's really happened is all these things he's talking about. The first thing that takes place is educating our student athletes, because there's a lot of these things, the mental side of competition, sports psychology. There's a lot of things that we've been on the cutting edge there also, but all these things we talk about in the acronym and of taking care of your bodies, it's your responsibility. Certainly, we're going to do things to help you, but when you're away from us, you got to eat right, you got to get sleep, you got to take care of yourself, and so on and so forth. And that's where education has come in. Nutrition has been that's huge with Jana and what she has done in educating them and understanding how this is a component that can make you a little bit better player than what you were, or better athlete than what you were. And everybody's looking to make themselves better. But I think we've done a great job of educating our student athletes with that.
That's a good question.
And Dr. Ivey, this is Dustin Jeffries over at Gentry Middle School. My students have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
What has been your best experience as a coach?
Oh.
Only one?
Wow. My very best. Now I know why it's so hard for my kids to answer these questions when I ask them. Winning big games is fun. Winning, conference championships and bowl games, that's fun. But I think for me, one of my favorite stories is Henry Josie, and just seeing the devastating knee injury that he suffered, and just knowing the work that had to be put in, and his mindset. Even when he was on crutches, he was still smiling. And I have a picture, one of my favorite pictures. My daughter's made a bead necklace for him, and he's wearing. We took it to him when he was in the hospital, and he was walking around with the beads on crutches, and he was smiling. And so that just shows the type of person he is. But for me, that first touchdown that he scored just really, that I thought about all the hard work that went into his recovery, and how most people would not have come back from
that. Coach Pinkel, what about you?
Well, I've been coaching a lot of years, and have been around so many great coaches and players and people. It's really hard to say one game. I think the most recent one, obviously, would be the Cotton Bowl this year, because it had so much meaning and it was such a great year that we had. But honestly, the thing that probably the most rewarding thing for me in my what I do is I love the relationships I have with players. I take great pride in. We have one of the best graduation rates in the country. That's a priority here at Mizzou, and certainly in our football program, and that we have resources for that. That's really, I go into homes and I look mom and dad in the eye and I say, I look at mom and dad and said, we're going to give you resources to be successful. I say it's my job that your son graduates from Mizzou. I'm the one that's responsible, and I take that, and that's very important to me and very meaningful to me. So that's it. And then one thing that I reflect every year is our banquet. We always have our seniors up in front, right in front of the whole staff, and they have their tuxedos on, and we're honoring our seniors. And I just remember, like Pat says, when these guys come in, and what Henry Josie went through, what all these guys went through, and how they've matured into young men. They're graduating from college, and they have great successes. And I know they're going to go out and many of the things that they've learned in this program, they're going to apply it to their everyday life. And those things are, you got to win to be able to, keep your job so that you can enjoy all those things. And I love winning, and I love competing more than anything. But it's all about the people part that at the end of the day is the most rewarding thing. Just like Pat said on what Henry went through, that nobody knows. You can't explain what he went through, but how rewarding that was for him and some other people.
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned force as a metric that you guys measure now rather than just strictly how much weight you can move. Can you go into what are some other metrics that you guys are measuring, and what kind of improvements or changes have you seen as you introduce new technology, new processes and things like that so that you guys can measure success and how things are working?
Okay, that's a very good question. We have so some more technology that we have is what we call a Tendo unit, and what it does is it's velocity-based training, and it's something that Brian Mann, who's Dr. Mann here with us, is something that he's passionate about, and he's the kind of the statistical person on our staff. So we don't just assume things work. We actually run statistical analysis to determine whether things work. So running a regression analysis and ANOVAs, things like that. We want to know if the types of lifting we're doing actually pays off and it works. So when we were doing our hang cleans, which is an Olympic exercise, so you're trying to pick the weight up and lift it up and catch it in the rack position as fast as you can. What we found was just once we have different levels in the program, so once you get to a certain level, by the third level, we need to move the weight fast for it to apply to athleticism. So you can move a weight, but you move it slow, and then it doesn't apply to your 40-yard dash or your vertical jump or your broad jump or being able to absorb a landing. And then if you take Russell Hansbrough, his run from last week, and where he made a linear cut, which is not normal. You see lateral cuts, but he made a linear cut. We work on those things and we call balance drills. So being able to, he went 2 yards forward, 2 yards backwards, and it took him 2 more steps to cover the distance that he when he went backwards. And so how can we help an athlete be able to produce the force, absorb the force that he's producing? And so the types of lifts that we do, we're able to measure that. So we measure peak velocity, we measure average velocity of lifts, and we have machines that are right there. It gives us instant feedback, and it gives the players instant feedback on how they perform that lift. And so then it becomes not about how much weight's on the bar, but how fast you move the weight on the bar that produces force.
And Pat, could you also explain to them just briefly about the technology in terms of measuring when an athlete's working out, how we hook them up and we monitor their work, and how we use that information to help them?
Right. So we have.
This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
One of the first things we do is we work with Missouri Orthopedics Group. We actually have 2 what we call DARI units, and these are very expensive units. There are only 4 in the world. There's 1 in Kansas City. The company's based out of Kansas City. 1 in Australia, and there are 2 on the University of Missouri's campus. And the second one is currently being built. It may be finished at this point, but this one will validate, make sure that all the rest of them are correct in what they're measuring. And basically, it's like a video game. It's a markerless video game. It analyzes your movement and how you're performing. So if there are imbalances, if left and right, forward, back, front, back are off, this machine will pick it up. So that's one of the things that we're doing. Next is we have what we call the catapult. This is GPS technology. So what it does is it's a unit that attaches on the back of the shoulder pads, and it sends information about, it has accelerometers, gyroscopes, and magnetometers inside of it that sends information up to the satellites. The information comes back from the satellites and to a computer, and then that's where Josh Stoner collects all of this information. And right now we're determining what we call overall player load. So how fast someone accelerates, how much yardage they cover, and being top speed. Being able to measure all of these different categories, we'll be able to determine the impact of training, how hard an athlete is working, and things like that. What we also have, we have a polar team heart rate system. And what it does is, in real time, we can have a computer right there on the field measuring everyone's heart rates. And what that does, at the end, it'll give us a recovery report. So at the end of practice, we are able to tell when that athlete will be recovered from that practice. And so that helps us to give them information on the things that they need to be doing to in terms of getting in the cold tub, or they go in hot and cold tub, what types of foods they should be eating. It goes into very detailed information, whether you should eat a banana or orange. We can go that serious. One's more alkalytic, one's more acidic. So, and they have different effects on your recovery. And so these are things that we're able to do. There are other things that we have. For instance, Morgan Stewart right now, who's not able to practice, we trained him on an upper body bike at 5,000 foot altitude. So what it is, there's less oxygen the higher you go. So it's a mask hooked up to a unit, and we trained him so that where he could do 15 minutes on an upper body bike, it's like a 45-minute workout, that your heart has to work more with less oxygen because you're up at altitude. So just a few examples.
They're using those every day. I see it in the weight room all the time. Like the Tendo, I actually saw Russell using it this morning.
Yes.
So it's amazing. I just asked Coach Ivey, what is this? Anybody else want to jump in?
I'll chime in. I'll chime in. This is I'm Austin Kim. I'm the sports director at ABC 17 in Columbia, Missouri. And this is for either Coach Pinkel or Dr. Pat Ivey. I know you guys talked about the mental edge with the sports psychology. Can you talk a little bit more about that and elaborate how that's actually helped your players? Because, I mean, I think when most people think of sports psychology, they say, okay, just focus or try harder. I mean, what does that actually dive into?
Well, I think kind of how it originated is, Pat coming to me, Dr. McGuire on our campus, who's a sports psychologist, used to be our track coach here, talked about just the mental side of competing. And, we have a thing what we call the bottom line, and that's the 4 components you do in a football play. But what do you do when the play's over 30 seconds later when the next play, and you have to deal with just what happened to you? What are you going to do in those next 30 seconds? And so we call that whistle to snap. Play's over, whistle blows, and the snap is going to come here in about 30 seconds. And to train our athletes of how to think so that they can get back to the optimum level to compete. And that's really something that I think has been just absolutely outstanding for us and really applies, and maybe Pat even can explain it in a little bit more detail.
Yeah. Coach Pinkel and the football staff spend an incredible amount of hours on football and recruiting and game planning, and more than anybody will ever realize or know, 7 days a week, early morning to late at night, is football. They're doing everything they can. My job is to think about all the things that aren't necessarily related to football. And one of those things that I'm very passionate about is the mental side of the game. And because how do you train on an early June, first week of June? How do you train when no one else is around? And it's football season is 3 months away, and it's the mental side that helps you to prepare. And Coach talked about what's happening those 6 seconds. That's the snap to the whistle. That's being a 6-second competitor. Well, there's another point when the whistle blows, when you have about 20 to 40 seconds before that next play, that we can help our guys to be refocused for each play. And so we call that whistle to the snap. And so Rick McGuire understood what we were trying to accomplish and help our guys be focused for each play. And so we came up with a program that consists of thinking right, positive self-talk. Optimal arousal is getting in your zone, so being able to not be too psyched up or jacked up or too under aroused where you're not ready to make the big hit. And then concentration and confidence, and you package all of those things up, and it becomes what we call whistle to the snap to help our guys be able to be focused for each play.
I think
Go ahead.
When did we start doing that?
I don't know. I think it was about 4 years ago, wasn't it? 4 or 5 years
This is
ago.
our 5th year.
And actually, what we do is we train. They go to class, and Pat Ivey and his staff, they actually through the summer train them, and we continuously talk about it. What we found as the player, maybe the freshman, sophomore, they get it a little bit. They want to line up right, though. They just want to know what they're supposed to do. They want to go make the catch. They want to make the block. But the player that's been established a little bit, he knows what he's doing on the football field. He wants to get that extra edge, and I think it's a mammoth extra edge that you can have. Of what are you going to do with your mind? How are you going to deal if it's the greatest play that ever happened to you this moment, or if it's the worst play that you ever made? How are you going to get yourself ready to get the next play? And what through Pat and Dr. McGuire have done, they have fundamentals that they quickly go to, bam, 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 and they learn how to do it, and they find out, and I've seen it happen. Andrew Gatchkar, who plays for the San Diego Chargers, he's a guy that I went from a good player to an all-conference player, I believe, just because of whistle to snap. He applied those things, and it's really, really fascinating stuff, but really I think it's had a huge impact on our program. It's interesting, we talk about Mizzou made around here. We're talking about Mizzou made here. We're talking about, we think we train our student athletes as students, as young men and young women in our athletic department, as football players and player development, and the total person we develop. We think we do it, and certainly in the player development side of it, in the psychological and the diet and all the things Pat's been talking about, we think we do it better than anybody in the country. And I think our winning, if you look at our winning, our first round draft choices, our graduation rate, we're very, very proud of all those things and so many of the great young men and women that come out of our athletic department.
To kind of follow up on that, do you guys maybe notice that, because obviously the sports psychology thing applies to the entire department. Do you guys see those athletes or those former athletes apply that to life after sports and how they just become better people and whatnot?
I don't think there's any question about it. I get emails from ex-players all the time, or I run into them here or there, or when they come and visit and they talk about things that they use with their kids, their managers, or their maybe in business that they're ahead of certain people, and how they use some of the same team building things that we do, and all those things are life applicable, and it's really great. I know for me playing for Coach James, my experiences, Don James years ago at Kent State, he had a huge impact on me, and not only as a football player, but as growing up as a young man and being responsible and accountable for all those things.
Something that our players that come back from the NFL, so during the offseason, they talk about the advantage that they feel they have over their current teammates and where they're from. They talk about no excuses. How that's one of the foundations of our program is that we don't have excuses for anything. We find ways to get things done. They talk about the work ethic, and we have a culture of hard work here at Mizzou. And they talk about the mental side of the game. They talk about how they know they have an edge from the whistle to the snap over the guys that they're competing against, and that's at the next level. So these are things that they always come back and tell the guys who are on the team, make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on here at Mizzou, because they feel like we have an advantage.
We have much more responsibility as coaches and everybody that touch our players than just trying to win football games. Certainly that's important, but the most important thing is when they leave here and they walk away from here, that they feel like it was one of the greatest experiences they've ever had in life. That the life lessons that they've learned here on the court or the field, in all the different areas that they've been trained, that can apply long after they leave. And again, that's what I think we all feel most rewarded about.
You guys have asked great questions. We have time for about one more because we do have practice.
Yeah, we have to get to practice here.
We do have, but anybody want to ask any more questions that you're dying to ask?
Yeah, Coach, I got one right here.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your favorite pizza topping?
Gary, the fuck up.
What's your favorite pizza topping?
What's your favorite pizza topping? That's a quick one, and then maybe we can
pepperoni and sausage. Pepperoni and sausage. That's my favorite. I don't eat a lot of pizza. You get old, you can't eat pizza because you got to be smart about it. Real quick, we have one more question there. If someone mentioned something.
Kristen.
Chris.
That was your one choice.
Yeah, I just wondered, you've been there in your 13 years there. When you look at all the advances in technology, how mind-boggling is it the tools that you have at your disposal when you start talking about the total development of athletes there? Just how much it changes.
It is mind-boggling. I got tired of Pat walking through the door because every month he walks through the door. Hey, Coach, I got something else. We need some money. We need to get this done. But it's my. So I go to the coach and say, okay, guess what? Here we go again. But you know what? It's amazing because that's what I said. One thing about Mizzou Made is that we want to stay on the cutting edge in all these different areas. Even what we do with the resources we provide our student athletes academically. So for everything we do, we want to stay on the cutting edge. And Pat has done a great job. And I get emails. Sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning from him of things that are happening around the country or different places at different universities or different NFL teams. And it's great to have people like Pat in your program, and certainly we have a lot of others like that we're always trying to make ourselves better. We always evaluate. We don't ever just come in and change a lot, because 95% of what we do is great, but we always want to work in that 5% every year of making ourselves better, and that's with people like Pat.
Hey, Coach, real quick, we got a coaching tip for you.
Oh, okay.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Me and my dad thought that you should get the flea flicker with the game at 3.
What was the end of the hut?
I couldn't hear the end of it.
Dad.
Flea flicker.
What?
We want to do the flea flicker at
Oh, you know what? We'll put it in the second quarter this week.
Oh. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Practice.
MIZ, thank you.
You, thanks.
Thanks, Coach.